So good evening from Dubai, good afternoon Europe, and good morning America. We are back with you with another session, and this time we are talking about demystifying Web3. A very important topic because, almost every day in our Zoom calls, I hear all kinds of crazy definitions about Web3. People describe it in different ways. Some talk about blockchain, some talk about wallets, some talk about transparency, and. So obviously we'll do a deep dive into this topic. We'll bust some of the myths there. But my definition of Web3 is very simple. I think it's a mindset. It is all the other things, but largely it has to do with mindset. So we'll discuss what I mean by that in a bit. And let's do the introductions first. So my name is Sharad Agarwal. I'm the CEO of CyberGear. I just changed my title from CEO to Chief Metaverse Officer because I think that's the space I want to be in. And my agency is called CyberGear, and we are enabling brands to get onto the metaverse bandwagon. So right from strategy, consulting, the actual build, the digital twin stuff, the activation, the community building, almost a full 360-degree holistic experience. So that's my day job. And my passion project is onlywebinars.com. And I'm happy to say this is like our 50th webinar. We started when COVID happened 2 years back, and we are on a journey to, co-create conversations that help educate our community. So we are on a mission. We want all of you in the audience to be up to speed with our panelists. And our panelists are drawn from all over the world. They are coming in today from London, Israel, Germany, New York, Milan, Toronto, and Dubai. So I'm going to allow my panelists to introduce themselves, and then we'll get started. I'm going to start with Karen. Karen, can you please introduce yourself to our audience? Thank you.
It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Karen O'Brien. I'm a CMO, and I've had about 20 years experience working in big tech and entertainment companies in Silicon Valley. I'm currently CMO of a stealth blockchain company, and very excited to be here.
Thank you, Karen. Laura, over to you.
Okay, so hi everyone. I am a professor of luxury strategy and international business at Sta Bocconi University in Milan, Italy. And I have always been kind of diving into this world of blockchain and Web3 since 2019, so probably later than everybody else, but very interested to kind of talk about it and share my insights.
Thank you, Laura. Diana.
Hi, so my name is Diana. I'm from Germany and the founder of Women DAO. This is an onboarding platform and women, all-female community and network. So we're bringing together all the women from Web3. And I'm the COO of Laura Marie Geisler, an NFT-funded raising team. So everything about me, you will find it later, but I'm happy to be here and to join this beautiful conversation.
Thank you so much. Tanya.
Hi, everybody. Happy to be here with great speakers. Thank you, Sharad. I think it's very important for us to talk about web and technology. And I am Tanya Zheleznyk. I live in Israel. I have a background of software engineer for more than 20 years. And last year I finished a new MA program about digital strategy and marketing communications. I proceed my study in entrepreneurship and innovation courses. I'm a self-employed consultant on information technology, digital strategy, marketing strategy fields. I also built a community during my studies with the where speakers are students and they bring themselves and their topics to the public discussions. And now I'm head of Israel chapter of All Stars Women community created by Leila Kirstel. So happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. Thank you. Amna, over to you.
Hi, my name is Amna Osman Chaudhry. I'm a founding member of the Oxford Blockchain Foundation and a founding member of BlockClean. I am a graduate level lecturer with teaching experience in London and Dubai. I am also a financial economist with economic research experience with the World Bank and a strategist for blockchain, metaverse, and Web3. I am so honored to be here amongst all these amazing panelists, and I look forward to the conversation today. Thank you.
Thank you, Amna. Alison.
Hello and welcome. I'm also really pleased to be here today with a great panel, which I know I'm going to learn lots from. So thanks for bringing us all together, Gerard. I'm Alison Alexander. I've got 3 decades of experience of leadership in services for people in the UK. But now I'm on that I'm on that journey into Web3, from one career into the other. And I've been recording that journey on LinkedIn. I'm a constant poster on LinkedIn of what I'm learning and how I'm learning. And that's been really helpful for me and for lots of people I know. So now I'm an entrepreneur as well in Meta Campus, which is a Web3 company founded by Perez, and it's about how do we help professionals transition from Web 2 into Web 3. Simple as that. How do we give them an education and a hands-on experience? And what Gerard said was really important, the mindset, the development of the understanding of the new culture that Web 3 is about. And that's my day job, but also my passion. I spend around helping women have a greater voice in the Web3 area from across the world. So thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, Alison. Jay.
Hi, everyone. Great to meet you all. Great to be with everyone here today. My name is Jay. I am the founder of the Web3 Podcast Network. I think of myself as an artist and podcast on my medium. I'm also a techie. Technology is my first love. And that's how I got involved with blockchain really early on. And I've sort of followed that blockchain trend through crypto and DeFi and NFTs, and really excited to see the space exploding like this now with Web3. So it's great to be here with everyone. I'm excited to share and hear from all of the other panelists.
Thank you, Jay. Indeed, I'm also looking forward to learning from all of you. So let's start this discussion by defining Web3. And I'm going to go over to Laura, since she is teaching the subject day in, day out, to educate us ground up. So Laura, just assume that we don't understand Web3 at all, right? We do understand Web2 because we've been living on it. So what's the big deal about Web3, Laura?
So to be honest, I think some people don't even know what Web2 is. People just know it as an internet. Basically, Web3 is the new iteration of what the internet is going to be. From let's just say a more technical perspective, Web3 is basically the internet, but based on the blockchain. So I think Amna will explain a little bit more about what the blockchain is in a little bit. But basically, at the moment, when we look at Web2 or the internet as it is today, you see that you have an economy where people are creating a lot of their own content, but a lot of the data is being kept by centralized in entities. So let's talk about like Meta or Facebook. They are an entity where they are the sole provider of a service. That's the same with Twitter or the same with Instagram, so on and so forth. Web3, however, is the idea that you have the ability to keep your own data and share it depending on the permission that you wish to release it. All of this is, so you yourself is an entity, and this is what we call decentralization. So you don't listen, or you don't have to adhere to the rules that is given to you by a central party. Rather, you yourself is a centralized party, and you then share whatever you wish to share based on the permission that you give to other decentralized entities. So.
Yeah, so am I right in understanding that the power is shifting from the big corporations to we the people?
So this is the belief. There are still quite a lot of bugs to kind of sort out, I think, in the meantime. Karen will probably tell you a little bit about how kind of this data storage is going to be done and how it's going to kind of play out in the future. But the main idea is, of course, shifting from a centralized mindset where the corporations have the power to an economy where we have the power as people.
Right, great. So I'm going to Amna because I am 26 years in the digital space, but don't understand blockchain at all. Amna, please educate us.
Yeah, of course. I guess let's start from the basics. So let's assume all of us panelists and all of the people in the audience, and there are people all around the world who have access to a ledger, which is basically a database. So as soon as I enter anything in the ledger, for example, I enter Web3, at the same time, almost instantaneously, it is updated in all of the ledgers around the world, including your ledgers. So this is a special technology called distributed ledger technology. Now, blockchain is a special kind of distributed ledger technology in which data is stored in blocks. So you have a block of data, and once it gets filled, it is connected by cryptographic hash functions to the previous block of data. So each block of data is connected to the next block of data through cryptographic hash functions, forming basically a chain of blocks of data, hence the name blockchain. And there are so many advantages that blockchain brings into the world, especially for the vision that we have for Web3. You know, the term Web3 was initially coined by in 2014, before Ethereum was even launched. The white paper was launched in 2014, but it was coined by Gavin Wood, who was one of the co-founders of Ethereum. And when he spoke about it, he basically said the same that you said, Sharad. You said that Web3 is a mindset. And he also said that Web3 is basically the vision of a more decentralized, a more democratic, a more, just version of the web. So it has many advantages as well. Blockchain removes the middleman from transactions. For example, if I need to send money to someone, we have all these financial institutions, banks. Through the use of blockchain, you can do it in a secure way, peer-to-peer from me to, for example, Laura or Allison, and the transaction costs are cut in half, very minimized, and so is the time. You have a greater transparency because everything can be viewed. Each transaction is there. So this really helps businesses as well who want to adopt blockchain and Web3, because everything is on the blockchain in Web3. So that enhances customer care because they know that this is what happened. So it's very easy. It enhances the vision of governance for businesses and companies. It has advantages in supply chain, it has advantages in ownership, and it allows people to monetize their data as well.
Great, thank you. I think I get what you are saying, and I'm going to go over to Karen. And Karen, my question is, how does one transition from Web 2 to Web 3, and when will it become a reality?
Well, I think it's happening now, and I think it's happening very fast. Having been through Web 1.0 and 2.0, I feel like it's happening faster than some of those previous waves. But what's exciting for me about Web 3 is really the promise of ownership and governance over data. I feel like we're in a place now where, similar to what Amma and Laura have said, really you're relying on these centralized entities, these huge companies that we really don't know how much data they have on us. And we really, in some cases, don't know that we have given permission for our data to be used. So I think what's very exciting is the future of use of data and basically having a lot more control over our own data and use of that data. So if we think about the centralized model versus Web3, where it's going to be decentralized, the storage and use of that data is going to bring about a lot of new models that are very exciting, I think, for both consumers and businesses. So for example, you may get paid in the future for your data. You might decide who you want to have your data and how it will be used. I think even more exciting is that people will get paid to store data. So for example, in a decentralized model, this data is not necessarily sitting in a centralized data center somewhere for a brand that uses it for their own purposes. It may sit with hundreds or thousands of peer-to-peers that are being basically paid to store that data. I think also the exciting part is the immutability, the ability for data that we want to have preserved to be there forever and that it will be uncensored. And there are some really exciting new technologies like our Weave network, on which the company that I'm working for is being built, where they're promising 200 years of permanent storage. And so that's exciting when you want to curate something or save something. Many times I have gone to the internet to find that something that trying to find is now gone, taken down or censored, and that will not be possible in the future. Web3 will preserve the data that we want to keep and store.
Great, that's very powerful. And I think that's one of the highlights of Web3 and the promise of Web3 really. Also, in my opinion, Web3 is about collaboration. It's about community building. And through my personal experience, I mean, like I keep saying, 26 plus years in the digital space, the best people I have met in my life have been in the last 6 months since I got into this space. And I think Diana has a lot to say about community building because that's what she does for a living. So Diana, share your experience of the importance of community in the Web3 space.
Yes, thank you. So I will go and just add some points to what Anna said, what Laura said, and what Karen said, because to understand how this community topic works, you need to understand what we had before, because especially Web 1, it was just about reading and consuming. We were just able to consume things like lexicas or looking up on some web pages. Web 2 was reading and creating. So we were able to interact. And this was the point where we all started to look at our, I would say at this time, customers, but we also tried to include them as community. And now Web3, it's all about owning the stuff. So you can read, you can create, you can interact, but you will own this stuff. So what we have now is ownership culture. And the beautiful thing about that is when we look back, we had brand building and we had community building, and we tried to level it up at the same time. But now it's all about ownership cultures. So your community is your brand and the same way around. So the moment we start creating or growing in a community, we need to understand what are the benefits for my brand. So these people are going to interact with me. These people are owning parts of my brand I built. And then you also have to let go of it, because every person who will join your brand, whatever you build on Web3, will also bring something with them. So what we need to let go on while building this community, while building this ownership culture, while starting to build these strong relationships, it's we need to let go of control, because what we learned in the past, everything needs to be under control. So for sure we have to figure out some structures, but you have to build a trustful relationship with every person who owns your token, who is somehow interacting with you. And this is when the magic starts to happen. And this was also what I experienced while building Women DAO. For sure, I had the idea of building this community. I had the idea of building this network, and I had a purpose. I had I would say probably just the idea of what I want to achieve in a few months. But with every person who joined Women DAO, we not just get bigger, we also, our purpose transformed somehow. So I experienced women joining this community who just said, so, okay, I'm good at, for example, social media, so I'm going to do all this social media stuff. The other one joined and said, okay, I have a background in stocks, so I will teach you about stocks. And now we have this huge power of knowledge. And so what I can say to everyone who's building in Web3, just leave behind all the things you learned about structure, about hierarchies, because now you're free and able to create with people where you, and this is also the beautiful thing about the power of Web3. We will communicate with wallets, with pseudonyms. We will communicate with graphic profile pictures. So at least probably we will not know who's on the other side. And therefore we can break with all the bias. So we can just say, okay, however, it's not important how old you are, which gender, where you come from. The only thing that's important for me is what you bring to my community and how we will grow together. And yeah, just to be aware of giving people the power to own what you built together. So it's not my Women DAO, we all are Women DAO. It's not my own strategy, how to bring us further. It's how we all interact, the people we include, every woman that it's onboarded by another. This is what Women DAO is. So we are not just my idea, it's I am at least a part of this beautiful construct. So yeah.
Thank you, Diana. Love your insights. We are all in it together. And I'm going to go to Tanya because, a very important component of Web3 is education. We need to reach out to as many people as we can in our own ways and bring people together and get them up to speed. So Tanya, I know education is part of what you do. So please enlighten us on some of your initiatives.
Thank you, Sharad. I really think that education is a base for progressing and developing things and understanding where we are going. I would like to refer to your questions, what it will do for us as a humanity to use Web3. And in order to understand this, we need to educate ourselves. And it doesn't matter in what age you are. I've just restarted to learn in higher education last year, and my kids saw me as a mother learning and changing my professional path. And this is the message we want to pass to the younger generations, because you can tell 1,000 times that education is important, but if you don't implement it and you are not the leading this and walk the talk, as you said, so they don't see the meaning of this. And with the whole crisis of education system, it is very hard to explain now, and especially if you know that there is no specific profession you would suggest to them, and it will lead them the whole life like it was before. They will have to reinvent themselves, and we also every 3-5 years. So we are talking about another skill set which was abandoned on the way, which leads us actually to this new evolution of internet. As a software engineer, as Laura said, I was always new as an internet. There was no version for internet. So why now? Why we need to version it now? It's because we see some forces coming together, and especially we all understand that we need tools to be relevant in the new world when everything is digitalized. And as a lecturer in different places and organizations, when I see people in different ages with different background, they all understand that they need this, but they don't know how to achieve it. So the education now, it's more personalized even. It's not like it was a standard syllabus and everybody learn the same things. No, it's personalized to the person, to the group, to the organization needs, to the community, as Diana said, to the nation, and to the whole global community. But I would like to say one additional thing which is more important maybe than digital literacy skills, is more ethical and moral issue skills, which we have to take into account when we create something or do something, because Diana said it is for everybody, and the impact of this now is much more bigger and faster. So to the Nirav's question, where we're gonna be, it depends on us, but technology should be a tool, just a tool to achieve our goals. And this is what we should talk about.
Yeah, well said, Tanya. Well said. And Alison is nodding her head. So Alison, you want to add to that, I'm sure.
Oh, there's so many amazing things that everybody has said. That, and obviously the last one about ethics, I'm not a chief metaverse officer, I'm a chief ethics officer. So, but I think on all of, I do so much what Tanya says is important. The attention to ethics and the understanding of all the issues that can come up. But that comes back to culture. But these are really important topics that are often not taught in the kind of global education system of our children and young people. So we've had to go a long way to get them to teach like blockchain, and you might find that in 1 or 2 schools, especially in the UK. But for me, it's about how we encourage the politicians to really say we've got to radically overhaul our education system. We've got to make sure our education system is teaching people about the future, valuing the past, but looking at the future, so that then they learn how to use the tools of Web3. Because I think some of the important issues around ethics that we're hearing is that people are saying, well, how do you use Web3? How do you ensure that, yes, we talked about ownership of data. How do you really ensure that? And actually, have we thought of the issue that it's immutable? It's going to be there forever. And do people understand that? So when they put their data in, do they understand what that means? And these are ethical dilemmas for the individual before they jump into and say, oh, I'm going to put this in my, I like to call it my little kind of filing cabinet on the blockchain. I'm going to have that there. So, and so one of the audience asked about those kind of examples. For me, the blockchain is a perfect way where people can store their identity. We talk about self-sovereign identity. People can put their passport to a degree, but their identity documents, so they can move between countries and they always have it at their fingertips. They are in control of that. They can have their education credentials on that chain, in that filing cabinet. So if they have to leave their country, if they have to migrate to somewhere new, they don't have to wait for the kind of world of the post or the kind of like getting people to share information. They can have control, so they can share their information. And I think those are really crucial points that we need to help people understand. And I think we need to get the wider world to understand those real tangible examples, so people start saying, oh, this could be really helpful in this way, as opposed to at the moment, we've got a kind of Gen A who are being educated on all things Web3 from birth, or metaverse at least from birth. Somebody said that they're born with a phone in their hand. I think that's nearly true. And then you've got Gen Z who are much more used to it, but those who are still making a lot of those decisions. But Karen, also you were talking previously about the young generation are actually leading a lot more now than we've ever had before, which is brilliant. But I think that that's a really important issue. How do we help people understand the tangible gains that they can make in using the tools that everybody's talked about so far? But I'm going to stop there at that point.
Yeah, thanks, Alison. You've given a lot of examples of where people and companies can actually use Web3 and carry their data with them, so they don't lose it to those platforms. So yeah, that's a good takeaway. Now, Jay, you are hosting so many podcasts, right, on a daily basis. And I want to ask you, what are you hearing in the Web3 space that you want to share with all of us?
There's a lot going on. Thanks for the question, Sharad. There's a lot happening in terms of, this space has just allowed for us to be a lot more creative than maybe we've been able to be before. I know some of the panelists before has spoken about the transition from Web 1 to Web 2 into Web 3. And I think the sort of the defining feature of Web 3, at least from my perspective, is the ability to really take control of your brand and take control of your data and your identity, to own the things that you put onto the internet. And that creates some opportunities to think about the world in a different way. So the stuff that you post to Facebook isn't something that Facebook now has access to and is able to mine and take control of that data and use to your disadvantage, but rather it would be data that you own and you can control and use to your advantage. And that's sort of what happens on the blockchain side. But then if you think about it, maybe from the perspective of the creator, so a creator puts something creative out, whether it's art or music or a podcast, and they now have control over that piece of information and they're able to monetize it and share it how they want to share it. So it gives us the ability to rethink how we interact with each other and how we interact with the internet on a daily basis.
Great, thank you, Jay. I'm going to go over to Laura again. Laura, walk me through, I'm an organization, right? General Motors, for example. I'm in the Web2 space. What are the steps I need to take typically to get into the Web3 space?
So at the moment, I think there is kind of, since this talk is about demystifying Web3, I think a lot of people kind of want to jump the gun and want to say that they're Web3 enabled, right? Just by, doing NFTs or signing up for ENS. So if you don't know what an ENS is, it's an Ethereum naming service. And basically it's kind of like your brand.com, kind of like your generalmotors.com. And so people think that once they have that, they're Web3. But that's not necessarily the case. So again, firstly, they have to really understand blockchain from the very basis. How does it work? How it can basically enable the company. So just to give you an example, just because I'm kind of in the luxury space, a good example would be the Aura consortium that was created by LVMH, which is the largest luxury group in the world. They basically asked a bunch of different people to join a blockchain consortium. And currently Cartier Richemont is in there, Mercedes AMG is in there, OTB, which is an Italian fashion brand, is in there, Prada Group with all the different houses are part of this consortium. So firstly, they kind of have to have a basis of what blockchain is and how blockchain can kind of enable the business. Then next, they have to also kind of understand how does tokenization, token economy, and also cryptocurrency can then kind of play into their business, either transacting or also creating value or using utilities through token economy, either by accepting cryptocurrency in transactions or making or working with some of their vendors in a way to have this type of token economy in some sort of their value chain. And then also, I think one of the biggest part is the education of their consumers. So when it comes to education, I'm not talking about just giving them basic knowledge of what Web3 is or what blockchain is, but how do they interact and how do they have that interface from consumer to company. So to give you an example, right now, when we are doing e-commerce, what we do is we go on to a website like Amazon, and then we select an item, and then we purchase the item. And the entire customer journey is relatively simple because everything from going on to Amazon.com to pressing, to searching the item that you want, to then pressing the button pay now, to then finalizing your transaction with your credit card. All of this is relatively simple because there has been a lot of education involved, and there's also a lot of work in the UI and UX space, which is user interface and user experience. Unfortunately, at the time, as of now, we don't really have enough of UI and UX in the Web3 space. So we don't know how to do transactions with cryptocurrencies. I think majority of people don't. Some people know how to buy cryptocurrencies on exchanges, but at the same time, how do you store it on wallets? How do you make purchases on wallets? How to have your browser enabled with your wallet? All of these things are still very, very foreign to people. And so if you're General Motors and you want to be, let's just say Web3 enabled, you have to go through all the steps, right? And once you've gone through all these steps, it is then easier to then have an economy where people know exactly what they're supposed to do, how they're supposed to do it, and then not come into any issues. So just think about how you make a purchase on Amazon.com. It should be exactly as simple as that when Web3 is completely enabled.
Great, thank you, Laura. So let me share my experience, in the metaverse Web3 space. So I had a meeting with one of the local newspapers here in Dubai. Actually, it was like a board meeting. So the owners and stakeholders of business were there. And I started by asking them a basic question. I said, do you have a metaverse strategy? And they all gave me such a blank stare. It almost scared me, literally. I mean, they had no clue. And, they run a newspaper and they've been doing it for 35 plus years. I'm not going to name them because I don't want any trouble. But, I had to start from really the basics ground up. And in many ways, I think Web3 is going to give a new lifeline to a lot of dying businesses, such as newspapers. When was the last time you actually read a newspaper cover to cover, right? As far as I'm concerned, I get my news on the web from social media. I rarely, pick up a newspaper. And so a lot of organizations, a lot of brands are now going to get a lifeline in the Web3 space by reinventing themselves, reimagining their business models. And I think they must seize this opportunity. And they can truly go global, build large communities, and monetize, because through NFTs, etc., loyalty programs, it's limited only to your imagination. And just to complete that story, I spoke for 1 hour in that room and they wouldn't let me go. So I'm looking forward to seeing them again, and hopefully they will involve me in drafting their metaverse strategy. So that's a true story, happened just last week, and I'm sure it's
Maybe
happening all over the world. Anybody else wants to jump in?
I was going to say,
Yeah.
maybe they'll share with you some new things. Maybe they'll go off and be learning at the moment. But what I wanted to say is I'm here in the US at the moment because at a conference on brands in the metaverse, exactly what you just said, to how do brands shift from where they are into the metaverse without just seeing it as, oh, we've just got to write a new, it's a new client group and we need to just know how to pick up this group. It's got to have all those elements of what we've all been saying as well, is how do we ensure companies understand the ethical issues as well. And I'll give you a classic example. I was talking with some women the other day, and they were saying in some of the metaverse platforms, they can only buy certain outfits. Okay. But those outfits are sometimes like bikinis walking around the metaverse. So firstly, if anyone's out there wants to make some new outfits, that will be great. But secondly, what they also said and so if you escalate that up with the issue of invasion of personal space in the metaverse, which has also been raised and is being raised as an issue, is that company responsible because of the outfit they produced and that avatar was in? And then does that avatar have rights as well? I mean, all of those complicated issues, but it is about how do companies really understand the new world and how people want that new world to operate, because otherwise we could end up with brands taking over those metaverse spaces and giving us what they think we want or they want us to want. And that's why the community aspect, again, which Diana was talking about, is so crucial, that the community is influencing how those brands come in, rather than those brands just jumping in and giving us what they think we want or they want us to want.
Great, thank you. I'm throwing this open to the panelists. Is there any story in this space that you would like to share with our audience? It could be something that happened in your life recently. Diana, you want to come in?
I would love to come in.
Yeah.
The thing is, always people ask me, so okay, we need a strategy, we need to figure out, and they're pretty pushy. There's somehow this kind of FOMO, and then I just say to the people, now it's bear market. So what we really get right now is the gift of time to make conscious decisions by listening to the people who we want to involve in our strategy. Because I don't think there's just one single person outside who will deliver the perfect strategy, because this is the first time where you interact and evolve your strategy with the people who will join. And this is a step-by-step process. And as we all know, this is the early beginning. So we can imagine somehow a metaverse. And for sure, every one of us sees somehow an utopia, but we still haven't solved our problems here. So what we keep on doing is reproducing discrimination or sexism or hypersexualization of female bodies, of whatever, of how fashion should look like, of body shapes, types. Also, what we do is the first avatars we saw are avatars with a nice shaped body, with long, beautiful hair. So, and I also experienced when I created my first avatar, I thought, okay, this is somehow my face shape and this is somehow my body shape. But everything I've been choosing was a few steps better than I would look like. And then I figured out, oh my gosh, why do I reproduce the same things as well? Because probably I do not have solved my body issues right here. So I just try to make my own way. And maybe we will all meet up in the metaverse with different shapes, probably with no human shapes at all, because maybe it's not necessary. Maybe we will be stones or shining or whatever, but we need to let go of all these things we learned, because when we think about an utopian metaverse where everyone is equal, then we can't just stand in front of each other with all the mindset, with all the structure we learned, and act equally. So what I wanted just to add on is, we do not need a fulfilled strategy, because this strategy will evolve the moment we listen to the people with whom we are going to create these spaces. So this is it.
No, thank you, Diana. I've also put in the chat some interesting metaverse platforms for our audience to try out. Next time, instead of having a Zoom meeting, try youarenowhere.com or mootup.com, and your audience will love the immersive experience there. It's quite interesting. You can create avatars or just appear in person. So give it a check. I actually organized a webinar in youarenowhere.com, and it was an interesting experience. All right. So yeah, it's still open. Anybody wants to come in? Yeah, Jay, your hand is up, and then I'll come to Laura.
Yeah, sure. I just wanted to jump in on what Diana was saying just now. I think it was pretty cool in terms of her perspective on, you know, the way that the avatars look. Well, one thing that I noticed is back when we did the Metaverse Fashion Week, which was maybe a few months ago, one of the features of Metaverse Fashion Week was that the models, a lot of them didn't actually look like human beings. They were actually felines on the catwalk. So human-shaped cats, and they had feline faces and feline features, but they were sort of walking upright. And I think that's one of the things that's going to happen, that's eventually going to play out in the metaverse, especially as we get in a younger generation that isn't necessarily, that hasn't been conditioned in the same way that our generations have been conditioned. And so they're able to think of themselves and think of their bodies, at least in the metaverse space, as separate and apart from the way that they physically look. And you sort of see that playing out a bit in the NFT space as well. So avatars don't necessarily look like people, they look like animals, and they look really futuristic. So eventually, I think that all sort of changes, and it's just about sort of like giving those persons who have those ideas and that level of creativity the space and the time to get to that place. But I'll let Laura jump in as well.
Yeah, Laura, over to you.
Okay, sorry. So yeah, just going back to kind of a segue away from Web3 and more into the metaverse space, I think that over the last few days or so, Meta, or formerly known as Facebook, has been kind of introducing a few little things to kind of help with the building of avatars. And again, it is this thing that I find very strange, because the whole idea of being in the metaverse is being or creating an avatar is creating an alter ego. It's not supposed to be you exactly, because in the metaverse, you have the freedom to be whatever you want to be and whomever you want to be. And so I think the idea of what Meta has kind of forced you into is creating a likeness of your face. There are other metaverse platforms like Zepeto, which is a Korean social media platform, where you can take a snapshot of your face and they'll create a likeness to you. There's another metaverse-based avatar creator called Ready Player Me, exactly the same. So they're really trying to kind of recreate your physical self on the metaverse. But I find this to be very, very contradictory, because this is not the whole idea of metaverse, right? And if we go back in time, I think that we can take a look at The Sims as a very good example of what the metaverse should be, because The Sims, you can be an alien, you can be a vampire, you can be a plant person, and also the different adjustments of your body shape. So Diana talked about, like, you know, she had some body conscious issues, but on The Sims, you can get fat over time if you don't exercise. And so I think a lot of that plays into what the metaverse could be or should be, rather than what Facebook or Meta is trying to force down our throats. So I think, again, there is a lot of misconceptions of what the metaverse is and what the metaverse could be. And I think that people should also have a good understanding of metaverse can offer in the future, where you can be whoever you want to be and whatever you want to be it a cat, a dog, or even an alien, for example.
Thank you, Laura. Laura, you have a question, by the way, in the chat. Somebody wants to get some information from you. Let's go to Tanya and then Amna.
I think we touched some pain point with the avatars, I think, which brought up by Diana. And I would like to refer it because it really bothers people. The first step to enter this space is how do I see myself in the virtual space when I don't know myself in physical space. And it starts really in small steps when I talk about a LinkedIn profile with people. And I say them, let's put the background behind you. What is your background? And this is really hard step for people to formalize this. What is my background? So this is really issue, how we see ourselves in physical space, in digital space, and maybe with the tools we'll have this ability to formalize it. And I saw it as a process which I did by myself in a gaming course, which I had during the studies, when the first task was to create avatar for ourselves. And there's two ways to create avatar: as I see myself in the real life, or some imaginary avatar. And there is a reason for that, which was researched. If someone wants to know about it more, I will send some links about it. But what was really interesting, that the lecturer said that we can evolve our children in this course. They can participate with us, with the parents. And besides that, between me and my son, there were some topics we could talk about, which were never before, and could understand each other in other ways. He described how he sees himself, and it was different than he looks like in real life. And me was exactly how I see myself. So when at this time he had a trouble in Zoom classes, and he was really depressed by this loneliness, I suggested him to put avatar on a Zoom class. And we asked the teacher, and he said, all right. And the moment children saw him as an avatar, there was a big explosion about what is it? How do I do that? And there was so much more engagement in the classroom. And then it was really amazing. So if we combine the right tools in the right time, in the right way, we can see the process and gain some things we didn't imagine before. And this is the magic of these things, I think.
Yeah, thank you, Tanya, for sharing those insights. It's a very interesting topic. And on one of our past webinars, we had Sammy Tauber from Australia come in as an avatar throughout the discussion. And she got all the attention. She stole the show. So yeah, avatars work both ways, I guess. Amna, you have your hand up.
Yes, so I just wanted to, Laura and Tanya already touched a lot of points that I wanted to bring up. Tanya just made a really nice use case of education. I think Web3 also has the use case of, learn to earn models. But the reason that I raised my hand was regarding avatar representation. So I believe that a true representation of an avatar should be able to exist in the vision of Web3 that we see, whether it is something imaginative, whether I want to go in the metaverse with pink hair and purple skin, or I want to go exactly as I am. So all body types should be there, and all these different representations should be consciously worked upon. The second thing I wanted to touch was because you were mentioning brands entering the metaverse and the topic of avatars. I think there's a huge opportunity for brands to build a community around and lead by example. So recently, a few weeks back, we look at the example of a beauty brand called Clinique. And Clinique entered the metaverse space with an ad in the metaverse, and it was an ad that celebrated diversity and inclusion of women in all skin colors, all shapes and sizes. And I think that is an example that brands should look into. And I encourage you people to look into this ad for an example, because I was teaching a class on Monday on the metaverse, and I wanted to show the students this ad, but I could not find it on YouTube. So maybe it's not uploaded on YouTube yet. But you can go on LinkedIn and search Kathy Hackel. So this this ad was done with the company Journey and Days 3D, and it is an example of how brands should lead the way when it comes to entering the metaverse and focusing on representation, inclusion, and diversity.
Thank you, Amna. And Karen, you are nodding your head. I think you know a thing or two about Kathy Heckel, right? Karen?
Yeah, I met Kathy years ago, and I've watched her evolution through AR, VR, and now she has the given the title of godmother of the metaverse, and I think it's well deserved. She's one of the most prolific, I would say, authors in the space. She actually just put out a book, but she is enabling and advising a lot of major brands and industries on how to think about entering the metaverse. I do think the questions of ethics and the questions of how to do business in a way that is as seamless as some great user experiences that have been mentioned are. So I think just brands that are not clear about how to do that should step back and listen, and really be thoughtful about how they enter the metaverse and how they use Web3.
Absolutely. And I think the onus is on all of us, to be educating our communities. And, Kathy, of course, is somebody I really look up to. I'm still trying to get her to accept my connection request. I hope one day she will. And as most of you know, I'm quite active on LinkedIn, almost on a daily basis, and want to share this little incident that happened a couple of weeks back. So one of my very close buddies calls me up and says, hey, Sharad, how's it going? Is everything okay? I said, yeah, damn good. Why do you ask? He says, I didn't see you yesterday on LinkedIn. So, that's, it's like a compliment, because I guess I am getting a lot of traction by what I'm putting out there. And yeah, so a part of our job as leaders in this space, and by leaders, I mean just the fact that we are already into this space makes us leaders, because I know a lot of people who are just waiting for the right time to jump onto this bandwagon. But that's a choice brands need to make. And it's a very simple choice. Either you be a leader or you be a follower, and it's your call. So I leave it at that. And now we are almost 60 minutes into this conversation. I'm not going to wrap it up right away because this is so interesting. There are two things I want to do now. One, I want to talk about inclusivity in Web3, because I think that touches all of us. I want to also talk about women empowerment and what we can do to make a difference in our lives. And then I'll give 1 or 2 minutes to each one of my panelists to just wrap it up from their point of view with their takeaways. So let's talk about inclusivity. And I'm going to, who should I go to? Anybody wants to raise their hand on who wants to go first? Okay, Amna, and then Alison. What does inclusivity mean to you, and what can we do? Practical steps, please.
Right. So there are a lot of practical steps that we can take, and inclusivity basically means representation and in everyone being included, regardless of their gender, regardless of their social status, regardless of their race. So one thing that I specifically focus on is, especially which I'm very vocal on my LinkedIn as well and passionate about, is specifically women inclusivity. So I think I will discuss that more because I talk about it a lot. So I am very well aware of those issues. So there are almost 3.5 billion women on the planet. And there was a report done by the United Nations Development Program. Their gender social norms index stated that 90% of men and women hold some sort of bias against women. So that is a huge number, 90% of women and men, both of us. And the actual study shows, the recent studies shows, there have been so many studies done that this is entirely misplaced. There was a study done by the International Labour Organization that actually having more gender diverse policies increased business outcomes by 20% and increased profit and productivity by 63% in companies. So these are not small numbers. There was a study done by the UK government which said that women representation in companies is positively correlated with companies' performance. There was a study done by McKinsey that having women managers was more preferred by employees. And, I, by no means this is anything against men. There are so many smart men out there that I respect and who are very capable. It is just that there's so much, difference. There was a study published in Time magazine in 2019 that showed that there only for crypto and blockchain specifically, only 4 to 6% is the representation of women. And this is something that needs to be raised, and it needs to be consciously raised. And, I applaud Sharad for always bringing this topic up. And it is a topic that needs to be focused upon. I will say that because of all this, I think, focus on Web3, we are moving, we've got momentum going in the right direction. BlockFi, in 2022, they released a report which said that in 2019, the representation of women in crypto was 7%. By 2021, it was doubled to 15%. And by 2022, it is now 24%. So that means that we have got momentum moving, and we need to keep this momentum going by raising this conversation.
Thank you, Anna. On our panel, women are 80% plus as representation. So we are on the right track. Alison, you want to add?
I want to say I agree with everything that Emma just said, so I don't want to repeat that. But what I do want to say is that we've got all these reports. We know 50% of the population is women, but we still haven't got that 50-50%. So thinking about some tangibles are all those people who are in positions of power, in decisions, who are on boards, who are in recruitment. Then it's about them actually saying, we're going to take some intentional action to get more women here. We're going to take some intentional action to stand down half of our boards who are all men and bring in more women. We're going to take some intentional action. So I just wanted to add that point, but I just wanted to say 2 other bits about inclusivity. One, I think we still have over 50% of the world isn't connected to any form of the internet yet. So if we're going to talk about inclusivity, I think we need all governments to say, actually, this is a human right, the same as heating, lighting, food. It's like the Maslow hierarchy of need. People need to be connected because that is where life is happening. So we need to start really pursuing that. And I think the last thing I just want to add on top of that is this is an era really where we can really address the imbalance that often happens between children, young people and adults. Children and young people are at the forefront. They understand this world so much better. And I think this is a real opportunity for us, as Tanya talked about, learning from children, having those discussions. I think it can really change that balance that often happens and that we can all gain from.
Yeah, thank you, Alison. Karen, did you want to add something?
Personally, I'd love to see more women get involved in the creative space in Web3. Today, less than 3% of creative directors in advertising agencies are women. And so I think there's a huge opportunity for women to really lead in this space and for us to have a lot more inclusivity. And I think it would also have an impact on the way we see people portrayed in this space.
Yeah, and I also want to read out a comment from Judith, who's in the audience. And she says she has a 16-year-old daughter who's attending the webinar with her. I know Judith personally, and I applaud you, Judith. That's the way to go. And my mentor is somebody called Leila Hurstel. She's just 20 years old, and she runs All Stars Women. And she wants to grow it to a 10,000 strong empowered community. So I'm working with her closely to make it a reality. So now, friends, time for us to be closing. We'll go around the room, 1 minute closing remarks, starting with Diana because she has to leave. So Diana, 1 minute closing remarks, your takeaways from today.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was really a diverse panel. I appreciate it to the fullest. I would say what we should all have our point of view on is, first of all, education, and secondly, inclusion and diversity, because this will create a space where we all want to be, where we all want to spend our time with. And probably the third thing, do not stress. There's no need for FOMO. Be conscious with every decision you take. So thank you so much.
That's sweet. Laura, your closing remarks, please.
Yep. So just kind of tailing end to what Diana has talked about. I think that everyone is trying to jump into this space and taking advantage of kind of being the innovator in the space. And it's correct. Like what Karen mentioned, sometimes if you're not quite sure, it's better to kind of sit back and learn and understand, firstly, how are you going to tackle this new technology? How are you going to prepare yourself to be enabled, do the right thing? Because it can be very costly if you do something really quickly just so that you can kind of catch on to the trend. I think that if you don't have a big budget like companies like Gucci, for example, which is probably the most the companies that's championing Web3 the most, then probably better to just stay out for a while. It's still early days, just to let you know. I guess really the term Web3 has come across in, I think Amna has mentioned, like in 2014, but at the end of the day, like not many people are talking about it. We are probably one of the very first people to talk about it, and I'm super happy that Sharad has really invited so many women in this space, and it's really important to kind of build this sisterhood and kind of, you know, encourage more and more women to speak out or have a space to speak. So this has just been a wonderful experience.
Thank you, Laura. Let's go to Tanya.
I think that this is great session to hear everybody's think about it. During the process, we all have our past experiences and backgrounds, and still what is really interesting about these and now, for me, for being for a long time in high-tech industry, it is the first time I'm really excited about what is gonna be, and it is never too late. Now is the time to start learn and create, and you can start wherever you want. You don't need anyone's approval or some degree, or to be a professor or a data scientist. You just start step by step, and you have communities which support you, and these discussions like this. And I think the key is doing this together with our families, with our children, with our colleagues, and there is no boundaries. We see around the world people. Thank you and good luck.
Thank you, Tanya. Alison, Amna, and then Jay.
Perfect, thank you. So I'm going to say education, education, education is what everyone has said that's so crucial, but about not the technical, but about the cultural revolution that we're trying to establish, which leads to the next point about communities. We talk about community empowerment. That will only happen with, I think Susan said, active listening being the words that we were talking about. Active listening, know our communities, and therefore really have them owning the space. And then finally, just trying to say, as Tanya just said, everyone, Laura, everyone has said, this is new still. We all think Web3 is old news because we've been talking about it for ages, but there is like 0% of the population talking about it really. If you calculate everybody together, it's near enough still zero. And think of everyone on the panel and everyone in the audience as edge walkers. I love that, what I learned on one of your podcasts by Susan, and I use it all the time. We are all like taking risks. We're building bridges between Web 2 to Web 3. So important, yeah. And so I really do want to encourage them to keep taking risks, build bridges, and therefore we will break new ground and secure that concept of a free and owned by the community Web3.
Thank you, Alison. Great closing remarks. Amna, and then Jay, please.
Right. So just to sum up, for everyone. So in 1990, the first web servers was published by Tim Berners-Lee, which created the World Wide Web, and that was Web 1. So that basically gave people, consumers, only the choice, people only the choice to consume. So Web 1, you could only consume. For Web 2, which is mostly the version we see today, users can consume data and generate data through social media. There's a lot of other varieties. So we have the option in Web 2 to consume and to generate data. So what Web 3 offers is to consume data, to generate data, and to monetize data. So it gives power back to the people. And as a closing remark, I'm a huge fan of philosophy, so I will share this quote by Aristotle, who said, in order for the things we have to learn by doing them, for the things we have to learn before we do them, we learn by doing them. So I would suggest, don't wait for a perfect time, just start doing it. The simplest step would be either create a crypto wallet. You do not need to buy cryptocurrency. You can go set up a MetaMask wallet. They have easy instructions on their website. Or an even easier way would be to go check out a metaverse. There is a huge misconception that in order to enter the metaverse, you need AR glasses or some VR headset or something special. There are so many metaverses that you can just enter through your desktop. So when the call finishes, maybe you can go check out spatial.io, which I am not associated with, but it is very user-friendly. You can access it through the desktop and just start, because the first step is the hardest, and then it gets the momentum rolling. Thank you so much, everyone. It was an honor being here with such amazing panelists.
Thank you. And Jay has the last word.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not sure if we missed Karen. So if we did, we may need to go back there. But
we'll go back to Karen. My apologies. Yeah.
No, all good. The last thing I'd let everyone know is just something that I heard recently, that I sort of did some research on recently. So the first commercial airline flights were in the 1920s. Then by the 1960s, we had landed on the moon. So 40 years from from first flights to putting a man on the moon. I'd say we're very much in the 1920s stages of Web3. So for people in the audience, I know there's a 16-year-old in our audience, anyone who intends to still be around 40 years from now, this is, some technology that you should probably be checking out. So I encourage you to go ahead and follow everyone here on LinkedIn, find some influencers who are talking about this stuff, listen to some podcasts, read some books, and definitely attend a few more of Sherrod's webinars so you can get all of that information.
Thank you for that plug, Jay. I appreciate that. Karen, you get 2 minutes instead of 1 because I almost missed your.
That's okay. I would just say that, what I hear frequently from people is, I'm not a developer, or I've never bought crypto, or I don't think I could learn Web3. I'm so behind. The reality is, like all of our speakers have said, this is just the beginning, the very early stages. And there's something for everyone with Web3, no matter what you're interested in, no matter what your skill sets are, all skill sets are needed. So if you're in HR, there's HR people needed in Web3. If you're a teacher, there's teachers needed in Web3. If you're a marketer, doesn't matter what skills you bring to the table, just bring your real self and be willing to learn and be open to learning a new way of thinking about the internet and experiences. And all people are welcome. And I think to your point, Sherrod, I've never met communities of people that are more helpful when questions get asked. So I think that everyone should feel comfortable. I really love that one of our participants brought their daughter. I think more of that is needed. I personally have learned a lot in the early days about marketing with gaming with my son. And so I think, anything that you can do to sort of learn from different generations and different kinds of skill sets, the more rich you're going to have experiences in Web3. So I'm personally excited, and thank you so much for inviting me to the conversation. And fantastic with you guys.
Absolutely, and it's time for me to say thank yous, a lot of thank yous to each member of our audience who invested their precious 75 minutes with us. I appreciate your time and your interest in this subject. I want to individually thank all my panelists for their active participation. Love you guys. Stay in touch. Be good. And I want to end on this note. My mama always says, Sherrod, never be the smartest guy in the room. And I want to say, Mama, I'm trying to do that. Thank you and bye for now. Bye-bye.